came down with COVID. So yeah, thanks for asking. I'll let him know you asked.
Please. So sorry you got this. Yeah.
Oh, no worries. It's so minor. Um,
Oh, good.
yeah. Cheryl, how's it going? Or any of the AV crew there in
Doing
person?
good.
Yeah.
John had some questions for you. We're doing the refuges and precepts today.
Yes.
And will you be leading that or would somebody in the room need to lead it or how do we do that?
Juanita volunteered to do that.
Yay.
Would that
Okay.
work? Okay,
And
great. I'll
Juanita,
just invite her.
Go, Juanita.
yay. So we'll just leave it like that.
I did have one question. I wasn't sure Matt was going to bring a card for the Betsuin Temple. Does anybody know if that is out there for people to sign?
Yes, I brought the card, and if it's on the back here, I don't know how many of you know that the Betsuin Temple in the CID burned the other day, and they lost it, both the temple and they lost their archives. So Ajahn Nisabo and Ajahn Kovilo have contacted them, and we have a card on the back table there expressing our condolences and offering help. So if anybody could, if you get a chance, please add your signature to it. Good. Ajahn Kovilo.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
I'll just jump in. This is Mary. I'll just jump in with on that news, and that news spread across the state. Our Buddhist temple, we have a Shin Buddhist temple here in Spokane, and they sent out a call. It was really beautiful to see the response to that right away. Yeah.
That's good to hear. Thanks for sharing that, Mary. Well, we've just got 2 minutes till, oh, 1 minute till it's officially 9:30. Just sit for that bit of time and then I'll ring a bell and we'll begin with some announcements. Okay, good morning, everyone. Gonna have to get close to see tiny people on St. Mark's Zoom box. Well, welcome everybody, both in person, quote unquote, at St. Mark's and everyone here on Zoom. It's great that we have so many people coming together. Just wanted to start off with a few announcements. Matt made the announcement a bit earlier. I'm not sure if there have been a few people who've come since he made that, but we've put together, actually Matt put together a card for the Seattle Betsuin Temple, which was recently had serious fire damage, arson, and lost a lot of its records. And serious fire damage. So if people want, there's a card there at St. Mark's, and people can sign that at any point this morning. Another note is that Aya Anandabodhi and Samaneri Junhavara will be taking turns doing retreat at several places close by. So there'll be one of them, and they're going to take turns, swap off places, will be continuing at their location where they have been in Port Townsend, and then the other one will be in Bainbridge, and they're going to take about 3 weeks each at each location. And you can find out more information about that from the Aloka Vihara website under support. So that's just a great opportunity to go and support practitioners who are really having serious full-time efforts and capacity to practice. So yeah, check that out if you'd like to support more. And is Gary there, or do the AV team, Cheryl, or anyone else have any announcements to make there in person?
Yeah, this is Gary.
Yeah.
And I have an announcement back on the table by the books that are there for free. There is a Dana box marked for St. Mark's Cathedral. St. Mark's very generously offers this space to us every week. So anyone who is inclined to offer a gift to the cathedral to express gratitude for their generosity to us, that box will do that. And there is a QR code on it if you're not carrying cash that you want to put in the box, whatever works for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. And just for anybody else there, is there the shrine, the Buddha shrine set up still? I just looking out, feels like I'm right in the middle, the huge screen, big face right in the middle.
It is here right along
The shrine's there. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so once a month, we take the opportunity to do formal offering of the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. So Juanita, who's here on Zoom, will help lead that, and you can find the chanting for that in your chanting books. This is on page 128 of the chanting books, and for people who are on Zoom or on YouTube, there's a link to that in the notes. So page 128, Juanita will begin with the formal offering, and this is, of course, just an opportunity. If this is new to people, there's of course no pressure to do these. What we'll be doing is reciting a formal taking of the 3 refuges. So that's going for one's spiritual refuge, for one's contemplative place of stability, into the Buddha, that which knows, to the Dhamma, his teachings, teachings on truth, and to the Sangha, those realized beings who have totally put his teachings into practice, and to all of our good Kalyana Mitta. So that's what the 3 refuges are, and it's a formalized chant which goes back all the way to the time of the Buddha. So it's a very time-honored chant and ceremony which has been happening since the time of the Buddha. And then we're doing the 5 precepts, which are the basis for Buddhist morality, Buddhist lay morality. And this is just undertaking a training, so nothing, no kind of commandment. You're not agreeing to anything. You're not necessarily signing your life away to these things, but they're just look at them and see if maybe they are something that you want to give your life to. The Buddha called them great gifts. They're gifts of fearlessness to the whole world when you determine to refrain from killing, stealing, committing sexual misconduct, to lying, and to taking intoxicants, which can lead towards those other first 4 happening more readily. So for people who are inclined, can begin the ceremony by just bowing to the shrine 3 times, and then Juanita will do the request, and then we'll go back and forth. Please, Juanita. Or please, everyone can bow.
Ma yang phante tisarane saha pancha sila niyajama dutiyampi ma yang phante tisarane saha pancha sila niyajama tatiyampi ma yang phante tisarane saha pancha sila niyajama.
Okay, and I'll recite these, the Namo 3 times in Pali, and you all can recite along with Juanita. And maybe everyone else on Zoom can just stay muted. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
And we'll just go back and forth with the Pali. Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tisaranang kamanang nititang.
Ama phante.
And we'll do the Pali and the English for the precepts. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramane sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
I undertake the precept to refrain from the taking the life of any living creature.
Adinadhana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Atinadhana veramane sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which has not been given.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
Kame sumichachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kame sumisachara veramane sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musawata veramane sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from false and harmful speech.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
Surameraya majjapamadhatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Suraya meraya pachapama tathana veramane sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
Imani panchasika padani samadhiyami. Silena sugating yanti. Silena boga sampada. Silena nibuting yanti tasama silang visodaye.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay. That's a really beautiful way to continue the morning. So for the next 20 minutes or so, we can just sit in meditation together, and I will ring a bell at about 10 o'clock. So people can just get your body into a appropriate and conducive meditation posture. The posture of the mind that we're aiming for is one which is alert and relaxed. So similarly, see if you can bring your body into an alert and relaxed. You can begin by stacking the vertebrae one on top of the other, whether you're sitting on the floor or sitting in a chair. And with this central column, this central pillar, everything else, all the rest of the muscles of the body can just fully drape themselves and relax and just be fully soft all around this central column. And people are welcome to stay with whatever meditation object you're most used to, if that's the breath or a mantra. I'll be giving some level of guidance on a way to practice breath meditation, which I spoke about last week and in which I find to be very helpful, as it gives a broader basis for the mind to settle upon. It's got a funny name, but a very useful impact. So what we're calling it is the heavenly jellyfish breath. So to begin with, you can bring your awareness to the lungs. And just take a few bigger breaths. So a big in-breath, and just letting that full in-breath issue out naturally into a full and long out-breath. And as you do this several more times, just take a note that as you're breathing, it's not that the breath is just happening in any one tiny part of the body. It's not just at the nose, it's not just in the lungs, but really you can become aware that there's this whole almost living organism which is expanding with the in-breath and contracting with the out-breath. In classic text, we talk about a one-pointedness of attention. And so here our one point is this whole upper body, this whole living, organic, breathing torso and head. And it's easy to see when you're taking long in-breaths that the body expands outward. The top of the head literally goes up. You get ever so slightly taller for the in-breath. And with the out-breath, you shrink ever so slightly. The expansion of the in-breath, the circumference of the chest expands like a balloon being gently filled, and then contracts. The belly falls and rises. And there's this natural just ebb and flow. And this interconnectedness and fluid and flowing connectivity between what's going on in the lungs and what's happening in this whole bigger breath body. And this is almost could be a shortcut into immersion. Just becoming absorbed and feeling the whole expansion, the in-breath, and any contraction, this big breath body with the out-breath. And as the breath comes back to normal, the same thing is true. And what we're doing is training ourselves to be sensitive to the micro movements of the body breath. And there's a grace and a flow to this. So just keep coming back to the expansion and the contraction of this big breath body. In the last few minutes of meditation, it can be good and it can feel good just to shift and do some loving kindness meditation. So any sense of calm or collectedness, any subtlety or refinement of mind that you've been able to cultivate and bring to the present moment, use that strength of mind right here to just imbue and infuse all awareness without boundaries, this whole body, and even beyond the body. Just infuse our entire awareness, the whole world, with this wish. May I be well, and may all beings be well. Let that wish for personal and communal, universal loving kindness just be boundless, completely filling all awareness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable. May I be well, and may all beings be well.
Yamma jaloka hipati sampati kat anjalian tiwarang ayacatha santi tasanta parashaka chatika Yese tu dhammang anukam pimang pasang.
Ajahn, you're muted. Sorry.
Thank you. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Before going into a bit more of a talk, thought I'd do a tiny guided meditation on Buddhanusati, or recollection of the Buddha. And so you can close your eyes, because this will be an imaginative exercise. You don't have to close your eyes, no pressure, but so in your mind's eye, just imagine you're at home and you're by yourself. It's just a normal morning, somewhat early in the morning, and you happen to look out the window onto the street, and walking there on the sidewalk, headed in the direction of your house, is the Buddha. And you can see that he's a human. You'd never met the Buddha before, but there's something about his bearing, something about his brightness, the tranquility and grace with which he walks, the absolute firmness and rootedness of his steps, how it seems like he's not even moving. It's as if the whole world is moving around him. But he's headed in the direction of your house. And what does he look like? He's a prince who has given up all of his princely attire and princely role and become a renunciate, and is wearing robes similar to those that monastics wear these days. Not that much different. And hopefully, if you've come to Clear Mountain this morning, then you'd be all the more excited to see the actual Buddha. I'm not sure if he's actually going to stop at your house. You open the door and invite him in. And to your absolute joy, he does come in, and you invite him to sit down. And what does it feel like? And where do you sit? And what does it sound like? I can imagine just an utter, almost negative soundscape. Where it seems like the whole world is just completely quiet. It's almost as if I can hear his breath in my own breath. But what is the scene like for you in your own house? This is the living Buddha. And what does it feel like? Are you the most excited you've been in your life? Are you the most afraid you've been in your life? Are you the most anticipatory and just most calm you've ever been in your life? Does he radiate a extremely palpable sense of well-being which just envelops you, or is it none of these? Do you feel utterly normal? This is just some person who's come into your house. Whatever the case, you've been sitting there with him. It's just you and he in your house, your apartment. And the silence has just been pristine or crystalline or whatever it's been for you. But after a period of time, shorter or longer, you or he will say something. And what would that be? I can imagine myself just having tears roll down my face. Feelings of rapture and an upwelling of gratitude and warmth. But what is it for you? And whatever you say, what would he say? Or if he's the first to speak, what would he say? And what would his voice sound like? In the canon, it said that the Buddha had a utter grandeur to him, both in his physicality and in his voice. He had a deep voice, a resonant voice. It said that his voice would carry exactly the length of his practitioner, so would reach just to where you are, but he wouldn't need to speak any louder than is necessary. And his voice was sweet like a kalavinka bird. What do you say? And after this short dialogue, this short encounter, hopefully the most poignant and meaningful of your life, you can just both sit together in your own house, your own space. And you fully take in the depth and profundity of this encounter. Hopefully it was deep and profound. But if it just feels totally normal, just someone came into your house, you have no relationship with the Buddha yet, just some historical figure to you, or maybe you're not even sure, did the Buddha really exist? That's totally fine too. And after a period of time, the Buddha gets up and he leaves. And you walk him out and continues on his way. And your heart is just left reverberating. So please feel totally free to just stay in this heart space. If that's been a profound experience for you, and you're actually able to deeply imagine that and to feel as if, yeah, maybe in somehow even just visualizing that, imagining that took you to a stillness of heart, just rest there and stay in that heart space. I thought to bring this up because it speaks to, what the Buddha said. So in the visualization, I'm hoping everyone, before the Buddha got in, hopefully you were able to clean up your house a little bit, maybe throw the potato chips behind the couch, or throw the cans in the recycling, or do whatever kind of, you wipe off the counter, or whatever you have to do. Throw some stuff in the closet. But just to be able to receive him well, this is a important encounter. People who are new to Clear Mountain might not know that we have a Discord group. That's an online chatting and communication, community building platform. And we've got what's called an Upasaka group, a group of people who meet and discuss suttas, or the Buddha's discourses, every 2 weeks. And this past Monday, we went through a discourse called the Upakilesa Sutta. This is the discourse on the corruptions, was the one translation. And it's a really wonderful occasion to read discourses together. And I always find it inspiring and amazing how the difference of interpretation and what different people get out of reading the same discourse, and what I get out of it reading it at different times. I read this particular discourse multiple times before, but reading it again, and I had read it before we actually came to the meeting, but that night, Monday evening, you can go on Discourse, you can go on the Clear Mountain website if you want to learn more about that. But during the meeting, we were reading it aloud, and I was just struck by this pattern which the Buddha uses when he is speaking to people. So in the Pali Canon, which is the scriptural texts of Theravada Buddhism, which is what the Thai forest takes as our main scriptures. People, when you first come to it, if you don't have some kind of karmic affinity, or if it's your first time, it seems quite formulaic. You just see these patterns occur again and again, and it can seem somewhat robotic or somewhat stilted. Partially that was to help the memorizers. It was an oral tradition before it was written down. When you have these stock phrases which occur in different discourses, it helps memorizers remember what they're going to say. But what we find in this discourse is a number of these different puzzle pieces, these stock phrases. And there are 4 of them which occur as ways which the Buddha will address his students. So when the Buddha first meets someone, whether it's his Buddhist disciples or his lay disciples, he'll often say one thing. And I have loved this line, and it is a stock phrase, but it's quite meaningful, and the implications of it are quite fascinating. And the course of these 4, I realized on Monday, have an overlay with a framework which many of us, though perhaps not familiar with the actual details, will at least be familiar with the name of this psychological tool of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So this is Abraham Maslow. He's a humanist psychologist, writing in the 30s, 40s, 50s, I believe. And he had this famous hierarchy of needs. And what I believe these different introductory or stock phrases that the Buddha poses in succession to his disciples over the course of a conversation, are sort of a Buddhist hierarchy of needs. So I'll just present those in order. So the first of the Buddha's hierarchy of needs. What he says when he is greeted by his disciples. They have invited him into their house, as you all just did. And what the Buddha will say, oftentimes, if he's not content just to sit in silence, if silence is not the best thing, is, I hope you're bearing up. Kachi vo kamaniyang. I hope you are keeping going. Kachi yapaniyang. I hope you're having no trouble getting food. Pindakena nakilamata. So I have that memorized in Pali because it's actually when people are learning conversational Pali, which is a thing, that's one of the first things we learn how to do, because this is a greeting in Pali. So the Buddha didn't just jump in when he meets someone on the street. He doesn't just say, life is suffering, here's the Four Noble Truths. He had a typical greeting, asking about people's welfare. And this is equivalent to perhaps the first two levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That is the level of physiology and safety. So are you getting enough food? Are you safe? Are you physically healthy? The first word is kachi kamaniyang. So kachi, it's a question, but it's also a hope. So the Buddha would ask, kachi, are you bearing up? Or, I hope you're bearing up. Kamaniyang, it's related to this word kanti, which some of you will know, which is patience or endurance or tolerance. Is life tolerable for you? Is your situation tolerable? Is everything okay? How's it going? Is what the Buddha is asking you. And yeah, hopefully the Buddha which you invited into your house is the absolutely supremely compassionate and loving Buddha, which he is. Someone who's completely mastered the capacity for loving kindness. He comes in, he's filled your entire house. He's overflowing. Your house is now overflowing with loving kindness. Your house is almost gone and there's just loving kindness. You and the Buddha, or even you and the Buddha are both gone and there's just this reverberance of loving kindness. And he asks, how's it going? Are you okay? Are you bearing up? Are things tolerable for you? And when he's asking one of his monastic disciples of this, in the Corruption Sutta, these are monks who are living in a forest. They might not even have huts. They might be living at the root of trees. So, he's not asking, do you have the new couch, and do you have that new LCD 37-inch big screen TV? Do you have the new Ferrari? Whatever it is that most people talk about as the things that maybe, what does it really mean to you and to the Buddha? And when you ask yourself honestly, what does it really mean? How much, what am I meeting this base level, these first two levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? This first question of the Buddha, how is it going? Are you okay? The second question, kachi yapaniyang. The root of this word is ya, like yanas. So a vehicle, the Mahayana is the great vehicle. Yana is that which goes. Yapaniyang. How is it going? It literally means to go. How is it going? Is everything going all right? Is everything going all right for you? And imagine that just coming from the most compassionate and loving source in the universe. A completely egoless and boundless and caring, someone who only wants your welfare and benefit and who does not seek anything for himself. Are you okay? And you can answer. It's open. It's not just like the English, perfunctory, how's it going? Which is not really a question, and it's not even a statement. It's almost a hand's distance, stay away, okay, how's it going? And then you don't even stop, but it's, how's it going? I hope you're bearing up. Are you bearing up? Are you able to keep going? And the last question is, are you having enough food? And this points to the level of, if you don't have enough food, then you can't take in the Dhamma. There's a incident that's recorded in the Dhammapada commentary to the Dhammapada verse number 203, which is Jigga cha parama roga, sankara parama dukkha, which is jigga cha, or hunger, is the ultimate disease, the ultimate suffering, and sankharas, or formations, are the ultimate suffering. Having known this, one attains nibbana. So hunger is the ultimate disease, the ultimate malady. And the origin story for that is that there was a peasant who the Buddha discerned was able to, he had the requisite spiritual conditions to attain enlightenment. So he actually travels to meet this peasant, and that morning the peasant's ox had wandered into the forest and he hadn't eaten for a couple days, both the ox and the person, and he comes to meet the Buddha and he hadn't eaten all morning, and the Buddha actually first asks him, have you had enough to eat? And the peasant says, no, I haven't. And the Buddha says, okay, get this person some food. And then that person having eaten, the Buddha then teaches him, and the Buddha goes on to say in that verse that someone cannot pick up the Dhamma if they don't have enough to eat. And you can see this, and we actually have seen this recently. On a recent Saturday, there was a person who came to the gathering and showed up, and it was raining and they were cold and didn't have a place to sleep, and this was after the gathering, and Ajahn Nisabo actually ended up speaking with them for over an hour, trying to find them a place to stay. We got them some food. John gave them some soy milk, and a few others shared some food. And it's not like Ajahn Nisabo or myself jumped in and tried to teach this person. This is dependent origination. They were cold and they didn't have enough food. So trying to get them some level of physical safety. And eventually, that in that particular case didn't go so well. They ended up getting somewhat triggered and leaving and off into the rain. But we can try what we can, and certainly with ourselves. Do we have enough? Are we bearing up? Are things tolerable? Is our situation tolerable? Are we physically healthy enough, and do we have enough food? So that's the first level on the Buddhist hierarchy of needs. The next level, so if the monastics, or the people who the Buddha is asking, say, yes, we're getting up, we have enough alms food, etc., then the Buddha would then continue, ask the next question, which is, okay, that's great. I hope you're living in harmony, appreciating each other without quarreling, blending like milk and water, and regarding each other with kindly eyes. This is a stock phrase which he used again and again, and this is equivalent perhaps to the next couple layers of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is this need for love, need for community, need for support, and some level of esteem. And this is a beautiful statement, and all of the monks in this story, in the Corruptions Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 128, say that yes, we are dwelling in harmony, appreciating each other, not quarreling, blending like milk and water. What a beautiful simile. Before I came to these suttas, I never thought about what it would be like to mix milk and water, but they mix pretty well together. But, they don't stay forever. If you add too much water, then eventually the milk proteins are going to settle to the bottom. You have to, you have to continually keep an eye on this. It's not the case that, any substance will stay blended forever. That might be, not totally sure about the chemical accuracy of that statement, but milk and water, have too much water, some of the milk stuff is going to settle over time. I was thinking this morning, Ajahn Nisabo and I, we get along really well. I'm so grateful for Ajahn Nisabo, and but he and I are more like milk and coffee. So he's the coffee and I'm the soy milk. So we blend well together. But can you do this? Can you blend well and view each other with kindly eyes? This is really important in a communal setting. So yeah, this is important. So asking this other aspect of practice, how are my relationships right now? Even if I'm okay, how are my relationships with the people who really matter in my life? And hopefully you have some level of, yeah, hopefully there's a level of security there, a level of love. And if not, do what you can. And if you can't do anything more than that, there's still something missing, then yeah, you just have to be okay. You have to khanti. You have to endure with what you can't control. Something else which the monks say here, which is not quoted here, but this is their response to this next question, is that it seems that though we're multiple in body, we're one in mind. We're one in mind. And that's just fascinating to bring to mind. And you can bring it to mind both when you're with other people. That is an incredibly helpful and useful and beautiful, skillful means. When you're with other people, drop that seed, that little drop of almond or soy milk into the water of your social environment. Say, yeah, we're one in body, but on one level, we're multiple in body, excuse me. But on one level, can we be one in mind? That seed perception, just drop that beautiful perception into your social environment. And yeah, there's a truth to it. And even when you're by yourself, when you're thinking of other people, when you're practicing metta, we're multiple in body, but we can be one in mind. And so that's the second level of this Buddhist hierarchy of needs, the social level, the love needs. We need to have some level of communal harmony. And again, how much do you really need? And in a Buddhist context, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is somewhat controversial, because there was at least some idea that you have to have the lower before you can actually attain these higher levels of well-being. But in a Buddhist context, yeah, experimenting with, okay, how much food and security do I really need? The monks who he was talking to eat only one meal a day, and certainly many of the monastics I respect today only eat one meal a day, and all of the monastics I am friends with today only eat before noon, and many lay people do that as well. So what are the limits of that? How much do we really need to be able to thrive and to flourish? And similarly with communal harmony, how much communal input do I really need? In the Buddhist time, we have to get together every 2 weeks to recite the Patimokkha, our monks' rules, and we actually recite part of this phrase, this stock phrase, at the end of our Patimokkha. We say, we all train together, living in harmony, appreciating each other without quarreling. Thus, the Patimokkha is finished. So we chant this, the exact same words, every 2 weeks, and that's what we're training for. So it's a ceremony, just like we did in the 5 precepts earlier today. So the next level of the Buddhist hierarchy of needs is diligence. So the next question, if his interlocutors, the people who the Buddha is talking to, say that yes, they are living well socially, he would ask, but I hope you're living diligently, keen and resolute. So another translation is, I hope you're dwelling diligent, ardent, and resolute. So once you've got your food and your physicality, your safety, and once you've got communal harmony, how are you practicing? How are you practicing? This is equivalent to the level of, say, a level of self-transcendence on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There are a couple of intermediate phases in Maslow's hierarchy, such as needs for cognitive well-being, or needs for aesthetic or artistic well-being, and those are actually touched on. The monks here in this sutta say that, yes, they're doing well. How are they doing well? They are living well together, and they're keeping the monastery clean. They're keeping it orderly. They get together and have their meal together, but then they put everything away. So it's a beautiful environment. There's not trash all over the place. So there's a level of beauty, and they usually don't talk. They're usually keeping noble silence. So that's another input for how much socializing we need. But then, once every 5 days, and this is what we would do at Ajahn Jayasaro's, the monks living near him, and when Ajahn Nisabo and I lived near him in Thailand, we would just be living in our own huts, going on our own alms rounds, by ourselves, living by ourselves every day. But once every 5 days, we would get together and have Dhamma talk all night. Well, with Ajahn Jayasaro, we would just do it for a couple of hours. But here in this sutta, the Upakilesa Sutta on corruptions, they would talk all night. They'd talk Dhamma all night. So that's cognitive needs in the Maslow's hierarchy, or self-transcendence. Or in a Buddhist context, are we practicing? And this is really important, especially for monastics. Ajahn Nisabo wrote a beautiful poem recently, which you can find on Sravasti Abbey's website, which has a line in the middle of it which says, "I did not ordain to live in a warm hut." And yeah, okay, I'm getting enough food. I've got this level of safety, and I get along with my fellow monks. But that's not the end of the story. Am I dwelling diligent, ardent, and resolute? And as a practitioner, especially, this upper middle way Buddhism, the upper middle class, that's the funnyism, upper middle way Buddhism. It can be good to test, how much are you really on the edge of your practice? Are you really challenging yourselves? Is there not maybe a higher order of well-being that you can attain? How much are you practicing? You've got your warm house, you've got food, but how much are you practicing? Are you practicing the degree? Are you practicing the amount that feels right and is helpful for your life trajectory and for the present moment? And the final level of the Buddhist hierarchy of needs is attainment. So you've got food, you've got safety, you've got communal harmony, and you're practicing. But the Buddha doesn't just stop there. He says, but as you live diligently like this, have you achieved any superhuman distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones, a meditation at ease? So for people who are interested in the chanting books, there's a verse called the 10 Subjects for Frequent Recollection. You can look at it at some point. This is something that we are suggested as monastics to ask ourselves all the time. Has my practice borne fruit with freedom or insight, so that at the end of my life, I need not feel ashamed when questioned by my spiritual companions? So it's the exact same words as here. Has my practice borne fruit with freedom or insight? Have I attained a superior human distinction? So, there are these levels of attainment in Theravada Buddhism and in Mahayana Buddhism. So it's great to be in the present moment. That is the working ground. And eventually we stay here, keep staying here every moment, and eventually the path will open up. The continental shelf will drop off. We'll reach true depth in our practice. In this, Maslow's hierarchy, originally it ended at self-actualization was the top level. But then he says, actually, you can transcend the self. So there's this level of transcendence. And the Buddha, also to these same monks that he was talking to in this discourse, he is speaking to in a different discourse, I think it's the Chula Gosinga Sutta, Majjhima number 31, asked the same monks these same 4 levels of questions to asking about the Buddhist hierarchy of needs. And then here he asks, they say, yes, we've got the first jhana. And he says, that's great, sadhu, sadhu. He says sadhu, sadhu, like we do. But then he says, what about the second jhana? And they say, yeah, we can do that. And he says, that's great, sadhu, sadhu. What about the third jhana? And they say, yes, sadhu, sadhu. What about the fourth jhana? Etc. Into the immaterial attainments, into enlightenment. And they say, yes. And then he says, great, you've done the job. You've reached this meditation at ease. So that's the culmination. So that's full transcendence. And I think that really goes way beyond the, totally transcends any kind of pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So yeah, let's look at these in our own lives and in the formal talk there.
An Tamayang Tamakataya Satu Pakarang Katamase Satu 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 Anumotami.
Yeah, isn't that great that the Buddha said sadhu, sadhu, sadhu himself? Or he usually said it twice for some reason, but you can keep doing it 3 times because that's what we usually do. But yeah, let's open things up to questions.
Let me turn on this and I don't.
So people who have any questions, you can raise your hand there, and then people who have questions in person at St. Mark's, you can raise your hand, and hopefully we'll have a mic runner come to you as well. Maybe Cheryl, are you back? Would you be able to MC or call on people?
Sure, I can call on people.
Thanks.
Matthew
Cheryl.
has his hand raised in the Zoom.
Okay, Matthew, please.
Make sure people can unmute. Oops.
Oh yeah, hello. First of all, Namo Buddhaya, everyone, and I really wanted to congratulate everybody with the new year. And because I couldn't really attain the vigil, yeah, I decided to do it today and say that, yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. And I also wanted to wish to get better as soon as possible to everybody who got COVID, because I read that some people got COVID, especially you, Ajahn, and please stay safe, right? And the question which I also wanted to ask, right, when you were discussing the suttas, is that you said like that all of them are getting into some patterns which are kind of like easy to memorize, but I think it's really, really interesting that not only Buddha is speaking in patterns, but also people who I guess in like their day-to-day life wouldn't be speaking in patterns. So it's like kind of like when you meet the actual Buddha, it's kind of influencing you in some way that you also start to kind of like getting into those. But because I genuinely believe Buddha really, like everything which is written in Pali Canon wasn't really like structured that way, because like Buddha as the supreme being would be able to kind of like get those patterns. So yeah, I don't see any strange in that. But is it like influencing people to such a degree that they also start to do this? And sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Hey, thanks, Matthew. Yeah, Happy New Year to you as well. Yeah, I think you bring up a good point and an interesting point. I imagine some people, when they read the formulaic nature of what the Buddha said, it just seems not alive enough. The Buddha would be more spontaneous. And I think that's definitely true. But I think there were times when he would speak in formulas. If people have ever listened to Bhante Analayo's guided meditations, he too speaks in formulas. He does guided meditations in formulas. And when I can certainly imagine the Buddha having stock phrases where he would, present the 4 Noble Truths or the 4 Foundations of Mindfulness or the 4 Right Efforts in using the same words. Probably not, almost certainly not every time, or definitely not every time. But I think there's definitely use both for being completely spontaneous, which the Buddha could do perfectly, and using patterns and using pre-formulated structures. So the Buddha could do that perfectly well and did as well. The whole Anguttara Nikaya is somewhat of a testament to that. So yeah, that's I don't think that totally answered your question. Maybe you could write your question if I didn't fully answer it in the chat, and I can try to respond to that better.
We have
Uh,
Sid in the room. If sorry, if you weren't finished.
Oh no, I was finished. I just wanted to say that I'm still on mute. So is it reply implies that I can say that my main question was that like regular people per se, me, if I met Buddha and in real life, like not in a guided meditation, but in real life, would it be such thing that I am so influenced, or anybody really influenced, that we also start to speak like not in specific patterns as Buddha, like obviously knew Sanskrit and Brahmin stuff, right? But I mean, like on some natural level. So it influences me inside that I do not necessarily know all of the Vedas and everything, but I just started to do it. Like, and then it really like, why is it rhymes? Like regular people, regular folk, why is it rhyming so well, right? Because Buddha, yeah, supreme being, obviously could do everything. Normal people.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and everybody probably is imagining differently, and it's hard to say. I can certainly imagine that I have had this experience when I've been near teachers who I do believe I've met enlightened teachers, and when I'm near them, my heart, I get 20 feet away from them. I've had experiences, and then my heart just settles very unexpectedly, very strangely, and I start thinking much more clearly. So I wouldn't be surprised if, if the Buddha was right in front of me, if I was able, if I was just able to speak more clearly than I have in my adult life. And would I be speaking in patterns? Would I? I don't know, but I think that the Buddha would speak directly to me, and that was one of his skills. He would speak exactly to what you would need. That was one of his particular gifts as a Buddha. So, maybe.
Thanks.
Cheryl, did you have?
Sid, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sid. I'm pretty new to the Buddhism. I thank you for letting me ask the question. So what I understand is Buddha would not recommend believing anything from face value, actually questioning, right? So I was wondering, like the practice that we talked about today, the Dharma talk, that if Buddha would meet someone and then ask, like, have you reached fourth jhana or third jhana and all those things? I was wondering, is it a really good practice? Because it seemed like, let's say, if I meet a student and then ask, hey, have you got all your straight A's? Or if I meet an investor, like, hey, did you make $1 million or something? Or did all your kids are going to Stanford? Or all those things. I think this question might stress people out. Definitely, it might make me feel stressed, like, hey, did you become a senior, whatever, engineer or something? So I was wondering, like, is this some practice are like, how the monks who have not reached, did they feel bad? Because or ultimately, like, we want all being to be at peace and ease, right? So if we just go and ask, like, hey, have you reached enlightenment state already, right? So is it something that can make people feel bad if the intention is not right? So I was wondering, like, is this something that we can suggest people to actually practice?
Yeah, no, you make a very good point. Thank you, Sid. And I'm glad you came back. Glad to hear you, and I'm glad you don't have COVID. That's fantastic. Or you don't sound like it. So, yeah, no, wonderful question. And no, the Buddha, he wouldn't always do these 4 sets of questions. He would basically stop at the level that the person was at, like that Dhammapada story, where, yeah, if the person doesn't have enough to eat, they're not physically safe, he wouldn't then go on to say, oh, well, do you have communal safety, and are your Sangha needs met? Do you have Kalyana Mitta? But he would address the physical needs. And similarly with the next level, he wouldn't go past the level of, if they weren't getting along well. Earlier in that discourse, it's actually a beautiful portrait, because at the beginning of that sutta, it's like a bunch of monks behaving badly, basically monks gone wild. And these well-behaved monks, Anuruddha and his friends at the end of the discourse, are the counterexample of these badly behaving monks. So the Buddha didn't, he didn't go further. Okay, they're not getting along, so he's just going to leave. And yeah, in the first discourse I mentioned, he doesn't go past that first question. Have you reached a superior human state? They don't say yes, so he doesn't press further. But in the Chula Gosinga Majjhima number 31, he does, because they keep saying yes. So he keeps pushing them on. But yeah, I think it's a very good point that we need to gauge the neuroticism of our effort. How healthy or unhealthy is our effort? Gotta fix my quote. Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of us Westerners, like you're saying, we just have such unrealistic and idealistic views and of how we should be and how everybody else should be. And we take that and impose it on ourselves and beat ourselves over the head with it while we're meditating. And that's not healthy. We actually need to unlearn that skill. So there is, perhaps the best thing to do is, just rest in this third level. I've got enough food. I'm feeling safe. I'm getting along with the people who matter in my life. And I'm practicing right now. And if I start getting heedless, okay, I'm going to watch a YouTube video. And nope, I mean, no diss on, I'm a monk. I'm not supposed to be going on YouTube. But you're all, you don't have those kind of constraints. But yeah, if you get, are you really on the cutting edge, or are you on a helpful edge of your practice? So, rest exactly where you need to be. I hope that answered your question, Sid. Very good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Ajahn, thank you for the answer. Just I'll just share my takeaway very quickly. So I think the Buddha is not trying to make another person feel bad, like, oh, you are not enlightened, I don't even want to talk to you. So instead, probably like he's opening the communication channel to see, okay, this is the point, third jhana you're stuck, or maybe in some other state you're stuck, and then maybe opening a channel, kind of like helping them to guide through, like, this is the way you can get around. Maybe just to opening a communication channel so that he can help.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. These are all phrased as I hope you are. This kacci, K-A-C-C-I, is the Pali word. And it's both a hope and a question. And he literally, the Buddha was not only, arguably one of the best, speakers ever, period. But he was also probably one of the best, if not the best listener ever. At least that's my biased Buddhist opinion. But he would totally hear what everybody's answers were to his genuine and deep and useful questions. And in this sutta, he does indeed. They don't say that they've attained. And then so he gives them guidance on how exactly to do that, how to get rid of the hindrances to meditation. So thank you, Sid.
Thank you, Ajahn.
And now we can go to Mary on Zoom.
Ajahn, hello, friends. I just loved how friendly the Buddha was, that he would just come in and be so kind of human. How are you doing? Do you have enough food? The kindness of him really came through in those questions. And I have a rather odd question for you, Ajahn. When the Buddha was in my home, and that was a beautiful meditation to imagine that, when he left, there was this beautiful fragrance in the home. And I'm wondering, is there anything in the suttas about the fragrance of the Buddha?
Yeah, such a beautiful question.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is. And thank you for, that wasn't a part of my imagination, my Buddhanussati this morning, but it will be going forward. Dhammapada, the fourth chapter of the Dhammapada is all about flowers. Flower is the main metaphor. And there's all sorts of metaphors about how anyone virtuous has a fragrance which never leaves and goes against the wind. But it's also called the place where the Buddha lived at Jetavana is called the Ganda Kuti. The Kuti is the hut, and the Ganda is the fragrance. So the hut of fragrance. And that's not because he lit a bunch of incense or had Nagchampa going all the time, but that's fascinating that came up
Yeah,
Mary, thank you very much for sharing that.
thank you.
And it looks like we have Edmund online next.
Yeah, and maybe that
Anybody in the
is-
room? I'm not sure.
yeah,
John.
can we do, should we
So
do
we have
one
John,
or two?
John in the room, and then maybe Edmund after that.
Okay, great. And those may be the two last questions.
Hi, Ajahn. I had a question about AN 7.71 Bhavana Sutta, committed to development. And the Buddha talks about the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, the 4 right efforts, the 4 bases of psychic power, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 awakening factors, and the Noble Eightfold Path. I was just wondering, what are the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, and maybe the 4 right efforts if there's time, or if there's not, just whatever you want to answer.
Yeah, I'll just, there's a book, Wings to Awakening by Tanisaro Bhikkhu, Ajahn Jeff, which goes into this list of what are called the 37 Wings to Awakening, Bodhipakkhya Dhamma. And the 4 mindfulness ones that you were mentioning is the Satipatthana, so the 4 foundations of mindfulness, knowing the body, feeling, mind, Dhammas in and of themselves, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. So those are the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and the 4 right efforts are abandoning those unwholesome or preventing unarisen, unwholesome states from arising, 1. Abandoning unwholesome states that have arisen, arousing wholesome states that haven't yet arisen, and developing and cultivating and bringing to completion those wholesome states which have arisen. So, and yeah, that Wings to Awakening goes into that in extreme detail.
Thank you, Ajahn.
And then Edmund is the last, maybe.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I have a question here about chanting and these foreign language words or text that I don't really understand, and I'm not sure if other people understand. Because in my mind, it has to be kind of clear what people are talking about here. So when I hear, like, is it Pali or some kind of other language that I don't know words or terminology? So I was wondering if there's a way to do it in English, and so that it will be clear what is what and what we're talking about. And maybe in a brackets to have, Pali or some other language that you're using there, or vice versa, have Pali and then explain in English clearly what it means, what it stands for. So yes, that was my question, and
Cool.
thank you.
Thank you, Edmund, and good to see you again, or at least hear you. You bring up a good point. Many people nobody really probably who's here knows Pali, and so it's unfamiliar to most people. And some people just don't have any affinity with it, no interest in it, and it just seems foreign, and English translation is good enough. And for other people, it's deeply meaningful. I mean, the Buddha probably did speak something, if not Pali exactly, something close to Pali. And so there's this resonance. It's like when you're chanting Pali, it's almost like you're in the presence of the Buddha again. So we do a little bit of both. So if you, there should be a link in the Zoom, in Zoom and on YouTube to the Amaravati chanting book. Yeah, Cheryl just put that up. And you can go there, and that's got English and Pali for everything that we've chanted today. And yeah, thanks for that input. I love me some Pali, so I'm apt to try to use more Pali than people are comfortable with, but so please excuse my Pali amory. So yeah, we have to close up. Cheryl, would you be willing to read the blessing braid?
Here we go. First to Robin Beckman, dealing with physical difficulties, please send care. Alma passed away on Thursday. This was 12/29. Please send metta. Those with COVID and travelers, COVID is still spreading, particularly from large events. May all stay healthy and recover well. Ellen Wilhelm, January 16th, operation to remove cancer in bladder. Kathy Taylor, upcoming operation to check on possible uterine or endometrial cancer. Seattle Betsuin, suffered recent arson, building still recovering. Persephone, Kim and Gavin's kitty, passing, spread metta for a good rebirth. Donna, grandmother, passed away 5 years ago. Please spread metta. Jessica Randall passed away last night from cancer. Rest in peace, old friend. Geshe Dadul, Geshe La, body was found. A precious teacher. Please spread metta for good rebirth. Andrew Patterson, suffering from a slow healing and painful neck injury. Gudas Sachi, having rare genetic disease, baby aged 5 years. Please spread metta. And to all people who are hungry out there, please spread metta.
Cheryl, thank you very much. Does anyone else, either on Zoom or in person, want to say a name? And maybe Cheryl, if you can hear better than I can, you could just say their names.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Okay, I'll go prim.
Alfred Mannings. Matthew Eugene Artem, for protection and well-being.
Aunt Care, dealing with the loss of her husband.
Okay, I think that's all for now.
Well, we can sit with those names, and yeah, a lot of suffering and insecurity and people who aren't even having that base level of needs met. So maybe just sit with these names and this well-wishing for just a bit. Okay, and people can chant the verses of sharing and aspiration on page 33 together in English. And this is a way to just dedicating all the goodness and our good intentions this morning, sharing those with others. This is on page 33. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life, may they soon attain the threefold bliss, and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, And through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Okay, thank you for coming, everybody. Cheryl, is there any food there? People bring food, or is it pretty
There's lots of chocolate here.
chocolate? All right. So people
Other
help.
restrictions. And I think there's something on the end of the table.
Okay, chocolate and something on the end of the table. Please, people, help yourselves. And if you're new, please introduce yourself to other people. Everybody who I've met there is nice, so no need to be afraid. And yeah, there's also books for free distribution. So thank you for coming, everyone. And everyone on Zoom, wonderful to see you all as well. And hope you all have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Ajahn, be well.
Yeah, thank you.
You like the pizza?